Well, welcome again to another week's Analysis Behind the News. This is last Friday's Wall Street Journal. There's a video on every page. In fact, sometimes 2 or 3 videos on each page to explain some of the things that are going on and they're covering in the journal. One thing I'd like to bring up, though, before I get started, is that the American people often have trouble marrying the domestic and foreign policies of our government. There are some people, there's a segment of the people of the United States that want more socialism domestically. They may not call it that, some will, some won't, but they want more government in the economic marketplace, helping them all sorts of different things. But at the same time, these people decry American imperialism as a foreign policy. Conversely, there are those in the United States that combat the creeping socialism that they see of the federal government, but actually embrace the foreign policy of promoting democracy around the world, either by influence or sometimes by force. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the same policies. They're the same government. They're the same administration. They're the same people doing the same thing at the same time with both foreign and domestic policies. It's one, and it's leading towards world socialism. You can't endorse a domestic policy and be against the foreign policy, or endorse our foreign policy and be against domestic policy, because they're the same, they're interwoven, leading towards world socialism. And that's something that a lot of people can't seem to comprehend. A good example is Egypt. As I mentioned last week, it looked rather strange to me that I could see people in the streets all over Egypt, all over Cairo, but that there was a missing element that I could not yet see. Well, thanks to one of our new young writers, Christian Gomez, on the thenewamerican.com website, has had a couple of very revealing, well-researched articles on what's happening in Tunisia and Egypt and Jordan, Yemen, that kind of thing, and Egypt, of course. And he has a video on one segment, it's just a very short 1.5 minutes, which really demonstrates what's going on. You see over and over again the images from Egypt, and there are not very many of these images. They just keep repeating them, if you've noticed. Because I've watched a lot of it, and if you watch CNN, they've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes, maybe up to 5, and then they keep rolling it back and back and back. But Christian Gomez has done a great service in these articles to show that, yes, indeed, there is organization behind this. They shut down the web, they shut down the social networks. Organization is still the key to getting people into the streets and getting people to do things all at the same time with a singular purpose behind it. And these things reveal that the world communist apparatus, including the communist organizations in these countries, are very much involved in this process. To the extent where they're actually parading with communist hammer and sickles on red flags, the whole 9 yards, but somehow or another CNN can't find these people. Fox can't find these people. And the other 5 networks that aren't very significant anymore in the way of news. But I find that strange that we get this one-sided idea that these people are Democrats out in the streets. Then the other situation where all of a sudden the pro-Mubarak people came out into the streets. I find that very interesting, because not a singular individual is going to come out of his house or his apartment and get out into a sea of protest and say, "Viva la Mubarak." Of course, I know that's Spanish, but at any rate, you get understand what I'm saying. He's not going to go out there and say, "Look, you hundreds of thousands of people, I'm for Mubarak. What do you think would happen to him?" No, instead, a huge mob appears simultaneously, all in the same spot, all at the same time, to confront these other people that are all in the same spot, all at the same time. That's organization, ladies and gentlemen. people know where to go and what to do. Just like there's no such thing, and I'll interject this, there's no such thing as a spontaneous riot. A lot of planning goes into it. Sometimes hours, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. Riots are not spontaneous. They're very well organized. Believe me, I've researched this. The John Birch Society's researched it. The police departments of the United States used to do it. And we've seen manuals actually produced by communists on how to promote and produce and make a riot to whatever ends it may be at the time. The biggest problem we see now, though, is all of a sudden our government is siding with the communists and Mubarak has to go. Well, I'm not going to defend Mubarak in any way, shape, or form, but it's just another indication of where our government is sticking its nose into other people's business. This is what's causing this problem in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia and the Arab Emirates are very concerned over this because they see a destabilizing of the Middle East. And it's been causal in a great part by our foreign policy linking with the communist foreign policy. And if you don't know where the communist headquarters is, it hasn't changed any, ladies and gentlemen. It's still in Moscow. No matter how much they disguise it, how much they don't call it the Communist Party anymore. If Putin isn't a communist, I've never seen one. And so their secret service, their foreign service, and everything else are very much involved in this process. But we see it constantly throughout this whole thing. Now, there's some other things in here, too, that you've got to kind of guffaw when you see it. Bernanke denies the Fed is stoking inflation. What are you talking about? You're churning out tens and hundreds of billions of dollars of paper and flooding the marketplace with it, and then which causes inflation. Then you're saying you're not stoking inflation? It's a lie. Here's another one. Coalport takes its lumps. It seems, ladies and gentlemen, that we're exporting coal to China for their industry so that they can build more cheap goods, wiping out our industry. And so people are protesting it because it's going to pollute the air and everything. It's okay if communists pollute the air. It's just not okay if we pollute the air. Anyway, going through this. And then right after that is China eyes U.S. defense contracts. Oh, wonderful. The Chinese are now going to sell us our weapons and our helicopters and such. That is a serious mistake. China is the enemy. It's just like saying, hey, Hitler, we're going to buy your tanks. And we're going to buy your Messerschmitts. And then we have a war with you. We won't have any planes. We won't have any tanks because we got to get them from you and we can't get spare parts anymore. That's the kind of stupidity. Well, it's not stupidity, it's design. Now, I know a lot of libertarians want to buy the cheapest goods. And that's fine. Go to Walmart. But don't go and buy tanks and helicopters and weapons system from the enemy. It's not very practical. Another one, Argentine comments show rift with the United States. It seems now that the conservative candidate running against the socialist leader of Argentina is concerned that the Argentine police are not being trained by United States anti-terrorism schools because they're teaching them authoritarian ways of dealing with citizens in the name of the war on terror. And so here we've got a regime where you would think that embraces in many ways an authoritarian idea through their police department, but the conservative who's running as the leader of Argentina is now is concerned that, hey, the United States are training our police in even more authoritarian tactics in the name of the war on terror. It's kind of come full circle. So this is another part of the United States foreign policy. The people who mean to rule us, who are promoting socialism in the White House, are the people in this that are dealing this foreign policy out to the world. You might think about that and marry the two together and recognize and realize that everything works towards socialism. Whether they sell it in a patriotic manner, promoting democracy around the world, whatever label you want to put on it, that's what's going on. Until next week, we'll see you then.